Kevin here, Life22. And we have the first guest we've had on in a while. We obviously, everyone's aware, we've revamped the studio, got a new desktop, got just kind of re-coordinated, reconfigured things. So our guest today is Devin McCanna. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Perfect. Let me, here we go. And so Devin is... Devin, you're my guinea pig. So we're, and you haven't done a podcast before, so it's pretty just.
Yeah, this is my first one.
Nice and easy, relax. It's we're pretty laid back, so just one-on-one conversation, and then you are into real estate, yeah?
Correct.
Okay, so what do you got for what is it that you do?
So I help. I'm a wholesaler right now, just getting started into real estate. And pretty much what a wholesaler is I'll explain it to you in cash for right now. So say there is a property and they have it listed for 110,000, needs some work, whatever. What I'll do is a lot of people will give them cash offers. What I do is you can pretty much I don't really do cash too much anymore because I've found out if you have no equity in the home, you can't really do cash because they're going to come out of pocket.
Sure.
Because they owe more than what I can give them if I want to make any money. Because wholesaling is pretty much getting a house locked up under a purchase and sale agreement and then assigning that purchase and sale agreement to an investor like you.
Right.
So
okay.
I'm pretty much, hey, I'm going to buy your property for $65,000. We lock it up for $65,000, and I don't have $65,000 to just dish out like that. So what I can do is, hey, do you want to buy this property for me for 10 grand? I would assign that contract to you. So you would pay 75,000 to the title company, 65 would go to that seller, and 10K would go to me. So that's pretty much what wholesaling is, but
so you're kind of like a broker. You're kind of brokering the.
I'm not selling houses, so you don't need a real estate.
Well, sure. I mean, like you're kind of like an agent. You're brokering a deal between a pool of investors that you have.
Yes. So I created a wholesaling company so I can build my network and everything.
Sure.
But I can buy all my deals from that. So I'm doing all the hard work in creating a wholesaling company. I have a lead gen. I have a cold caller. I have a transaction coordinator. I have a disposition manager. I have a closer, but I've been closing most of my deals.
Sure.
So pretty much what I'll do is I found out most of the time when I do cash, I can't make no money and I can't help that seller out. What you need to do is help that seller out of their problems. So what we do is I'll have my...
So this is so the person who's selling their home, are they selling it like on the MLS? Do they have an agent? Or are you trying to find someone who's like looking at like private owner for sale? Like an owner is trying to sell it.
Right now we're building, I'll talk about the creative finance in a little bit, but sure. I'm building agent relationships so they can send me deals all the time and I can help them out. But pretty much where I started off is you can go down to the county recorder's office. You can go down to the city clerk's office and ask for a code violation list.
Yeah.
You can.
So you find like zombie properties, maybe that's not owned by a bank.
Yes, you can do that.
Joe homeowner, and I see it a lot, right?
Joe so like, buyer?
Yeah, it was. So there's a guy. There's a couple people that own properties, and I used to have to deal with them. Like I used to pick up jobs here and there for the county, for example, and the county would say, hey, we're about to take this property, and people would finally let them go to taxes. And so that's where I would end up like having to go through, do a junk haul out for the county, board the place up to keep the code enforcement office happy at the local municipality. You know what I mean? Keep vagrants out, things like that. Sometimes the property was worth more than just sending it to a tax auction. And so they would sell it at a private sale. And so a lot of times that's where we would haul junk out, for example. And so it all came to the discretion of the property per se. But then like even my experience, like when I was on the Common Council, like we'd get these. People would ask questions like, why is this house always boarded up? Why does it have an X on it? Why does it have a red square? And people would always ask questions. And a lot of times it was like some guy in California bought a rental property. They have no one local that they want to manage it. Maybe they don't have the finances to fix it, to make it habitable. And so it just sits. And this, I'm guessing this is where you come in. You say, hey, I found somebody who's let property sit vacant. It meets the standards for a boarded up vacant home. So they're not violating any current codes, minus the occasional, you got to shovel your walk ticket and they got 30 days to do it. Or you've got or 72 hours to do the shoveling and you've got like 30 days to mow the weeds, or the code enforcement will hire someone to do it for you. And so you find those people, right? Is that?
Well, not really.
You're
like
not finding the grass cutters.
I stopped really doing cash, so I don't really look for those properties too much anymore because I just they're more of a headache, more time.
Sure.
I like to help the seller, but what we usually do is we usually pull a list off PropStream, Deal Sauce, and what I was using, it's called LOI Blaster. And what they'll do is they'll pretty much, I can filter a list off PropStream, absentee owners, delinquents. I can do no equity. I can do high equity. And I'll pull those lists, and then what will happen is LOI Blaster will create an LOI for them and send it to the agent, mass blast. You can send 100 every single day. And what I do is I have my appointment setter call that list and set up an appointment with me. Hey, are you open to, like, I figured out that when I do cash and someone has no equity, because literally, if you buy a house for $300,000 today cash, do you pay $300,000 for it?
No. You've got
probably pay
10, 20% down.
Well, no, you're pretty much cash.
Oh,
I mean cash, not conventional.
Right. So you're not conventional.
You buy cash. You're still gonna you don't really pay 300. You got closing costs. You got a couple other things.
Oh, sure. So you're spending like $3.25.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You're probably at $315. Well, say I sell that house tomorrow for $315. You're not going to get $315, especially if you list it with an agent, because then
because now you're paying all the closing costs and the fees and the update of the abstract and all the seller fees plus whatever taxes in the meantime. Because there's always that prorate, right? A lot of people always forget that. Like, yeah, my county tax bill was due January 1. And if I pay it then, I'm actually paying for January 1 to December 31st of 2025.
Correct.
And if I sell you the building in February, you have to credit me back the 11 months that I've already paid in advance. And then if you sell it in March, that person now has to credit you back, because now it's your credit to have, right?
For sure.
And then so there's always that. So you've got 1 month, 2 months of just that one property tax, let alone the other ones that are all on different timelines.
For sure.
And yeah, so I mean that could eat up. $300,000 property, if that's the example. So I'm going to just switch it to like $100,000 property for Olean, just to make it simple.
Yeah.
So a $50,000 property in Olean without a star exemption, because it's not your primary residence, you'd be roughly $3,000 in taxes per year. So a $100,000 property is going to be $6,000. So $200,000 is going to be $12,000, and then you're going to add another $8,000. So it's $18,000 you would pay for that $300,000 property in Olean, for example. And so for that property, $18,000 is a lot of money, right? So now all of a sudden you're dividing it by 12 months. That's $1,500, right? So now you're paying $1,500 for every month that you hold it. And it's like, if you're not bringing in rent, there's no revenue other than you're trying to recoup it on the flip.
For sure.
Is that what you're
So what I'm doing is I'm just taking over people's payments with no equity. So say there's somebody, they owe $270,000 on their property.
Gotcha.
And their house is worth $300,000 and they have it listed for say it's listed for $315,000. It comes down to $310,000. Now it's at $300,000. What we do is we reach out to that property owner, or we reach out to the agent and say, hey, is your seller open to taking payments? We see your house has been on the market for 130 days. You're coming close to that 6-month expiration date. Is there anything I can do to maybe help that seller? So what we can do is pretty much, if you sell that home at $300,000, I buy it conventionally. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go to the bank, wait for my approval, and then I'm going to have to put 20 to 30% down.
Right.
And then I'm going to have at least a 6.5% interest rate or more. How am I going to cash flow?
Right. Sure. So, especially if you don't have tenants or somebody coming in.
For sure.
And you're going to try to flip it. It's like, where's your margins are real thin.
So what I'm doing is I'm wholesaling at first, just to show to show a little bit about me and that I'm creditable.
to build your portfolio.
Yeah.
And is that for the investor side?
Yeah, I'm building my portfolio, doing it like that. So pretty much what I'll do is I'll reach out to that agent. I'll say, hey, do you mind if we take over that payment? Because if you think about it, if they sell it for 300,000,
right,
now they're gonna come out of pocket 10 grand to sell their home. Pretty much 10 grand because it costs 11% is the average rate to sell your home. You got a listing agent, buyer's agent,
sure,
broker, escrow officer, appraisals.
Sure.
With creative financing, I don't have appraisals. I don't have
you don't
inspections.
You don't need an updated abstract.
No, I don't need to do that because what I can do is that seller is negative 10,000 net if I bought it conditionally. And what happens is they got a 3.25% mortgage rate because they bought it in 2021.
Right.
So why don't I just give you $2,500, $5,000? I'll pay the agent commission, pay the closing cost, and I'll take over your debt. So I'll keep the debt in your name and put the deed in my name. Because the bank doesn't own your property. You own your property. The deed is a receipt of ownership. Right. So say you go to the grocery store, let's say BJ's because they don't have a Costco here.
Right.
They check your receipt at the end, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say, hey, I got my cart. Well, now I'm buying this house. Well, what happens is I go to the cashier and I say, hey, I want to buy this, blah, 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 blah. The cashier is an escrow officer, pretty much.
The bank, right? The loan officer.
Well, they're the title company.
Sure.
They're not the bank.
Oh, right.
I don't do banks. I avoid the banks because I don't want to put 20% down. It takes forever and it can't cash flow. Why would I want to pay 6.5%?
Sure. To pay for their overhead.
Why don't I just take over their mortgage? Because one, if I go take out a new mortgage, who's making money? The loan officers and all, that seller's not making any money. I'm not making any money.
Yeah, they make money on your transaction.
So I'll just give them $2,500, take over their payments. Say it's $1,500 a month. I can rent it for $2,300. If I take out that 6.5 conventionally, say it's $2,200. Now I can only rent it for $23. I'm negative.
Right.
So what I do is I just, hey, can I take over your payments? I'll keep the mortgage in your name. We'll use a licensed third-party servicing company called Westar. It's $17 a month. And what they'll do is they'll service my loan. So I'll rent it out, take that $2,300 income, and they'll take it out of my bank, pay the mortgage, pay whatever we need, all the expenses, and then I'm left with what's left.
Right.
But what I'm going to do is pretty much co-living. My uncle works for JetBlue, so I'm going to try and get in there for pilots that, flight delays, stuff like that. Insurance homes down there. And what I'll do is co-living. Say it's a 4-3, I can charge you $200 per month. I'll create a membership, and $200 per week. Right. So it's $800 per month each room, and you get a house instead of spending $2,300 on a rental. Some people can't afford $2,300 on a rental. You can afford, $400 a month because you rent 2 rooms, and then I rent out the other 2 rooms. So now I'm bringing in $3,600, and now my mortgage payment over here is $1,500 because I just took over their debt, and their credit is raising because there's still a mortgage in their name being paid off by them.
Right.
So I think it's a better option. Once I figured out subject to creative financing, seller financing, once I figured out those, there's no really reason to ever.
So you're not going. So in this situation, you're inheriting somebody else's debt, right? Yeah. So they're taking a risk. And that's why you're building your portfolio.
Yes. So
because they're taking the risk that what if you don't make that payment? See what I mean? So they're taking the risk that if you don't make that payment, they take a hit on their credit, and this mortgage is in their name. It's their responsibility to pay it.
Yes.
And so you're building that reputation that says, no, listen, I'll pay this for you. And so they are getting a benefit by the fact that you're doing it.
What I usually do is, a lot of people do it differently. They care more about the house. I could care less about the house. I care less about the purchase price. Who cares? Purchase price is like the fifth thing I look at. I care about why the seller's selling, where they're going, and what do they need. Okay. So let's say there's a military, someone that's in the military. They moved down to Florida. They moved to Jacksonville. They buy this house. Well, now they have to go to California. Well, now they just bought this house. Now they have no equity.
Because they just bought it.
They just bought it, so
they're going to lose money in the transfer to transact this house, sell it, and then buy a new house.
Correct. So they're pretty much going to come out of pocket, 20 to 50 grand, depending on whatever their purchase price was and whatever their debt is. So I'll offer them, I try to keep it under 10 to 12% entry fee, including the listing agent and the buyer's agent. Sometimes what we'll do to the agent is we love working with agents, but they couldn't sell that home without us. So what we'll do is we'll say, hey, instead of paying your 3% commission, we'll give you 1.5% commission, and then we'll do that deal together, and then they'll send us another deal. So pretty much like, I don't know, like if you...
Because they're getting something, because it's not really a sale.
Yes. I mean, it is a sale. We close escrow. The deed transfers right to my name.
But they still hold the note.
They still hold the note. So when you go to that grocery store, say you go buy eggs, and you use a credit card.
And the bank is not going to complain because the bank still has a lien on the property.
The bank still has a
lien on the property and against the original owner.
For sure.
So like they're personally liable for that loan. The property is still held as liened. So because you can't wipe that out without a satisfactory release of notice.
Money lender or
sure, of course.
Money lender come in there and wipe that out.
Right, of course, or until you pay it off. Yeah. Right. So now I get it.
So I can get a house for free that way. Sure. Some people, if they're going to,
you're taking on some risk. I mean, you have to make sure that you have that need for pilots, right? You know what I mean? That. So I bought the house next to mine.
I just go to an investor like you and say, hey, do you want a 3.25% deal that you can cash flow $500 a month on?
Sure.
And I charge you $2,000 per $100 net in your pocket. Right. So if you net $500, I'm going to say, hey, I got this, it's $10,000 down. It would be $20,000 down because, all the cost, agent, paying the seller, whatever, it's $10,000. Now I'm assigning that contract to you, buying that house from that seller at $10,000, because what I would do is charge you, hey, you're going to make $500 net in your pocket, so I'm just going to charge you $2,000 per net.
Now, who manages this property?
Who manages this? You. You're the investor. So I will eventually.
So I'm not like a silent investor. I don't just hand you money and like a bank, right? You come to me, borrow the money, I cut you a note. We have a prearranged agreement on how much the.
So there's many things that you can happen. What I do is I go to buy the property like I'm going to buy it for myself, because I don't know, because eventually that's how I'm going to buy them anyways. So I'm pretty much, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I can provide for you. This is the value I can bring. And what I do is I tell, just if you bring up, I'm going to assign this, you're a wholesaler, you're a wholesaler. A lot of people don't like them because they refer them as low ball cash offers. Sure. You have a property for 110.
Sure, those guys that
for me to make money, I'm going to come in there at I'm going to offer you 40 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand.
Sure.
For me to make 10 grand, 20 grand off that property.
Right.
So I'm pretty much you got this business to run. You don't have time to go call sellers, pull a list, do all this. So what I'm doing is I'm building up my reputation. Like, hey, I'll go do that. I have a team that'll call the list. We have transaction coordinators. What I'll do is I'll say, hey, pull a list, and then set up an appointments with me. And I don't care anything about their notes. I don't care whatever they tell me. I pretty much just want to know it's a warm lead, so I can figure out, why the seller is actually selling, catch me up to speed, why you're selling, where you're going.
Right. Well, because you said, or initially you said you didn't care about the property.
Yes.
And I guess
I care it's in a decent location, but I don't.
Decent location, right, in decent condition. I don't want to buy a house, the roof's coming off. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, yeah, at full fair market value, if everything is at least at 90% condition, right? Roof, siding, foundation, everything's at, like a video game, right? You get your health bar. If your health bar is at 90% on pretty much on the average of everything, and then I'm comfortable with it. But if all of a sudden it's like, man, in the first 2 years, I'm going to have to put a roof on that house so that it doesn't fall in and leak.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Or you get one of these houses that somebody they didn't tell you the furnace don't work. They didn't tell you this. They bought the house. They got screwed. And they're passing that screw savings on to you,
So what we do is I have someone that's boots on the ground.
Okay.
He's a wholesaler as well. His name's Ryan. But if I ever need him to go look at a property, he'll go over there and check out the property for me for free, take pictures exactly. Hey, it needs this, whatever. But what we do is we call that seller, we get him on the phone. After I get that appointment, what I tend to do is schedule up another appointment because I have a lot of information and I can't really, if I give you all the information right now, your head's going to go all over the place.
Sure. So and then there's also trade secrets, right? Like
I write down some notes on what they do so I know where I can hit them at, bullet points.
Right.
So follow up. You have daughters, you have kids.
Right.
I try to get all the information, and then just say, I know I'm getting off topic, but let's go to seller financing real quick, and then we'll go back.
Yeah.
Like seller financing. Say you're 65 years old, and you're done with your rental property. You're tired of tenants. You're tired of doing all the management.
Right.
You're just done.
Right.
Well, say you go on Zillow, and Zillow says, hey, my house is worth $150,000.
Yeah,
but
whatever Zillow thinks.
I'm not, it's just like Kelly Blue Book with your truck. My car is worth $5,000. I don't think it's worth $5,000. So, you post your truck or you post your car for $200,000 so you don't get a wholesaler, cash lowballer, coming in there and saying, hey, I'll give you $4,000 for your truck or I'll give you $70,000 for your property.
Right. Yeah.
So what happens is you mark it up so no one's.
So when somebody gives you an offer,
so you have no mortgage on the property.
I've been through that road before. Pre-COVID, somebody sold a house in Olean for $100,000. Like, you'd expect the mayor to live in it. You know what I mean? Or you'd expect, senator. Sure. Like it was like $100,000 was a lot of money for a house in Olean, unless it was like a brand new build over by the hospital. And so for the most part, like, if you wanted a house ready to move in and like there was like nothing wrong with it, you were anywhere between $50,000 and $70,000.
For sure.
And now it's like, man, you can't even get a hovel. Like, I paid $80,000 for the house next to my house, the most amount of money I've ever paid for a property in Olean, and I still had to drop $30,000 into it.
Could you use the bank?
Well, the $80,000. No, the $80,000 because it was right next to my house. And so the seller knew that they had me kind of over a barrel.
Yeah.
And they are always in this particular one is always in that mindset that my stuff is the greatest. And this stuff usually is falling down. And that's why I had to dump $30,000 into it. Any other person, if I didn't live next door, I would be given over like $40,000 or $50,000 for the place.
But you used a conventional loan for it, correct?
I did.
So the thing is, what you could have done is you could have bought it from, did he have a mortgage on it?
Yeah, he had a mortgage, but he was not going to walk away with it without selling it outright.
Yeah, it definitely.
And now we've done a different. That was our experimental home. It was the first one that is like we do 30-day minimum rental periods. So like normally we don't do a month to month. We normally go for tenants that are going to be there 3 to 5 years, whatever. Like at least a year.
You're just doing some short term.
This was a short term, and it's not short term because in New York State, a short term is anything under 30 days. So we try to stick with 30 days or greater. And then we do month to month with the tenants. It's fully furnished, all utilities included. And we're getting $1,000 a bedroom. There's 2-bedroom apartments there. So it brings in $4,000 a month.
That's pretty good.
Which if I had it, a 2-bedroom apartment in Olean right now is going for $800 to $900 a month with no utilities. So if you go, okay, well, that means that building is bringing in $1,600 to $1,800 a month. That's, you know what I mean? Like, and then they pay all the utilities. So it's like, okay, so the only, that's not horrible. It means it profits, after mortgage and taxes and all the stuff that I have to cover, it profits like $1,000 a month on top of covering the mortgage, right? If it was getting 16 to be close, it would be like 800 to 1,000 in that range of bringing in 16 to 1,800 a month. So it's like, all right, well, is it, you know what I mean? Like, is it worth it? Is it worth the risk? Because that profit, I say profit because on average, for every unit you have, you should be putting like $200 a month aside, sure. Like $300 per building aside each month to go towards into an escrow account to go towards roof repairs. When the roof finally needs replaced, this escrow account should be big enough to replace the roof. It should be handling month-to-month maintenance bills. You know what I mean? And most people don't ever do that. They steal that money, and then when it's time to pay the piper because the roof needs done, they refinance it with conventional mortgages, or they do this or they do that, and they use it. They don't see it as like they don't understand that life, that health bar in your video game, right? They don't understand that as that roof gets older, it starts depleting.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And there's things you can do, preventative maintenance, things to get longevity out of stuff, which the contractor side kicks in for that. But the accounting degree I have for that kicks in with you need to be scheduling, budgeting, putting money away, and month after month, you need to be stacking it into an escrow account.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it too.
How many do you own?
I own 6 properties.
6?
I think it's 6. It's 6 properties, 12 residential units, 2 commercial.
What you should do is you should start investing your money instead of doing it all yourself.
Right.
You should buy back your time and have somebody do that for you so they can manage it. And what you do is you take 30% out, and then that covers all your, 30% goes to management fees, 30%, or not 30%, 30% goes to management fees and all the, taxes, insurance, all that stuff. We pretty much take out 30% of our profit, and then what's left is, say there's a $1,500 mortgage that we took over. Say we're left with $2,000.
So your revenue, not your profit.
Yeah.
Right. So out of your revenue.
Yeah,
right.
Out of your revenue.
Right. So for that building, it's nice because I made the initial investment into furniture. So you got to think that you never know who you're going to get. And like we have a local cheese plant that was being installed, and we had a pile of workers. So those guys are coming in, no problem.
Yeah.
$2,000 a month. That's fine. 2 guys to a room.
I was thinking about buying a couple properties here for co-living. I think it would do pretty well here, even though Olean sucks. But I think if you've been here for how long? Your whole life?
Moved. No, my dad grew up here, and after his divorce, I moved here in 2004. Yes, 2004. So I did my last 2 years of high school here.
But you've watched the market. It's
yeah.
When the market goes up and the market goes down, but it doesn't really fluctuate.
It doesn't fluctuate. No, COVID was a big thing because it blew bubbles all over the place outside of Olean that made people realize how cheap stuff was in Olean, and then also the housing scarcity. And so when you have scarcity, you have inflation in rents. So what happened was the housing prices skyrocketed because everyone was buying it. So demand was high, prices go up. Yep. That's just basic economics. And then with the houses being bought up, there was scarcity for renters, so rent had to go up because there's high demand and low supply. And so,
well, right now we really don't have an inventory problem. We have an affordability problem.
Well, I mean, we have inventory problems in terms of people having housing. Like, we do have an affordability problem. I will give you that.
We don't have an inventory problem because there's no way we should have, I think there's...
It used to be 28,000 people was the population.
I'm talking about expired listings. How many expired listings do they have?
Oh, sure.
Because there's a lot of...
There's a lot of places you can't move right into either because they need a lot of work.
Yes.
So the inventory issue is also a habitability issue.
For sure, yeah.
So, I mean, I would give you... and then there's a lot of people that the market changes faster than people's mindsets. Well, when I was a kid, candy bars were 5 cents a piece. You could buy a candy bar for 5 cents. You could go to the movie for 5 cents or 3 cents, and then 2 cents for your popcorn. And it was like,
but you're only making $1 an hour.
Right, you're only making $1 an hour. Inflation hasn't hit yet. No, and every year, that's why I try not to keep my cash in cash.
For sure.
Any money that I have.
You want to deploy. That's why creative financing would help you because then you don't need a lot of cash to get into it. You do need $20K to get into it.
It's okay to have cash available. If I have money, I'd rather not have it in. I mean, especially with the last presidential candidate, I would have preferred to not have any cash because the longer it stays in cash, 8% inflation means that my dollar is dropping by 8%. Sure. So every dollar that I own during that last 4 years was only worth 92 cents.
Yeah. And
so you own $1 today, and if inflation stays, usually inflation doesn't go the other way. You don't have deflation. It's not.
They print money every single day.
So right, exactly. But yeah, but it's usually on average 1.5% per year. So that dollar over the course of a year becomes 98.5% of what its previous value was.
For sure. Yeah. So like, say you had a property and there's no mortgage on it. You paid it all off. It's all done. Your property is worth probably Zillow says 120, but you think it's worth 150 because of all the time and money you put into it. What I can do is hey, say I come to you and I'm like, hey, what if I give you 75 grand for this? You laugh at me. You're like, 75 grand? What I would do is I would say, hey, I'll give you your 150. I'll come up to your purchase price if you allow me terms. So what are terms? Is what I usually get. And terms is pretty much making you the landlord to the lender. So the highest power in real estate is the note holder, the lender. The
sure,
bank,
sure. The Robert Kiyosaki way, right? Your goal is you're in the 4 quadrants.
So what I would do to you is, hey, I'll come up to your purchase price. Everybody's offering you 65,000, 75,000. Your highest offer is 90,000. All right. Well, I'm offering you 150. Which one are you going to take? 150.
I want to know what your terms are, though, to bring me to 150.
What my terms would be is I would ask you for the terms because I'm making you the bank. I don't go to the credit union and say, hey, I want 0% down, 0% interest for 30 years. They usually give me you can put 15% down, you can put 20% down. They usually give me the bank. So what I would say is, what are your terms? If I'm giving you your purchase price, can you help me out? Can you help me out on terms so I can cash flow?
Sure.
So you would be like, hey, a lot of people will be like, hey, I want 30% down and I want 12% interest. It's like, what? I'm giving you 150,000. I'll usually say I'm not your buyer.
Right.
I'm not your buyer because why would it? I can go buy it for 100,000. Say you were to take 100,000, and I were to buy it with a bank loan, it would still be. I would say it'd probably still be more if I bought it at 100,000 with that 6.5% interest. But anyways, say I bought it at 150, I would be like, hey, why don't I give you like 5% down? Because then you won't have to pay a capital gains because that's not your residential home.
Sure.
So you only get taxed on the money you receive. So why don't I give you 5%? So I don't, your property needs like $10,000 in work, just it doesn't really need $10,000 in work, but for what I'm going to do with it, say I'm going to do an Airbnb, it's going to need $10,000 in furniture and all this.
Sure.
So
which is very similar. My method next door is very similar to what you're thinking. You call it co-living. I guess I don't know the terminology, right? So
there's many.
So if you're PA, there's
so
another
co-living's rent by the room. There's midterm rentals where you can have travel nurses, you can have short-term rentals, you can do an arbitrage. Hey, you want $1,200 rent, but I go to a co-living facility or a sober living facility and they'll give me $2,200. What I'll do is, hey, can I rent this from you for $1,500 and I'll rent it to. That's an arbitrage. You can do that. You can do a lease option and then go to say you're a business owner. So sometimes it's hard to get a bank loan because you claim no income. Well, some business owners claim no income because they own real estate as well. But what happens is I can go to you and say, hey, I can get you a better rate than a bank, 10% down. I gave you 5%, but say I go to my lease option buyer and they give me 10% down, and then my payment to you is $1,000 a month. Well, his payment's $1,500 a month. So what I would do is lock in that rental rate as a lease option. I don't know. I'm going all over because
I hear you.
I've never really done a podcast.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm
trying information all out at once.
Yeah, no. I'm just trying to. So you find the deal, and each deal seems like it's unique, right? Like just like a real estate agent will tell you, every single sale is different. It's unique. It's this or it's that, right? Like
for sure. Let me see if I can. That's why I like the whiteboard because you can better see it. So say we have a house, right?
Oh, there we go. Why is this? Yes.
There's a seller, and most of the time, I'm just going to talk about seller finance right now, just so you understand it a little bit. So what we do is usually there's a seller, and what does a seller usually have? They usually have a deed,
Right.
and then this guy owns it free and clear, so he has no mortgage on the property.
Okay.
So he really only has deed. So what happens is there's deed, a receipt of ownership, and then there's title, like how they own it, like tenants and commons or sole proprietor or whatever, you know.
Right.
So there's deed and title. What happens is a seller really doesn't know about creative financing or whatever, you know. Say this guy is just a tired landlord. Sorry, my handwriting.
Yeah.
Tired landlord. He just wants to be done with it. You know, he already has a tenant involved that pays him $1,200 a month. But what happens is he's like, I'm done. I'm too old. I don't want to keep up. You know, I don't have a management company, so I always do the management myself, and I'm whatever. You know, I'm too old, so I don't want to wake up at 8 a.m. or 10 p.m. to go help somebody do something.
Sure, frozen water line. That's what we're dealing with today.
So he's like, I just want to be done with the property. What would happen is he checks Zillow and he's like,
oh man, I can get 100,000 for this.
I can get 110,000. That's what my property was worth. So pretty much like you want to sell your truck, you know, it's no use for you and your company no more. But you know it's worth $5,000. You don't want 5,000. You're gonna put it up for 8, and people are gonna lowball you. So you just put it up for 10, so no one lowballs you. Because if you know what. So
and you might get 5 or 6 out of it, which is what you wanted or anticipated.
Yeah, pretty much. So what would happen is I would be like, hey. Or what would happen is they would go to the agent and say, hey, my property is listed for 110. They would say, let's list it for, let's just say 125.
Sure.
And then what would happen is they would have to pay him a 3% commission. They would have to pay buyer's agent 3% commission, and it's like 4% for the rest, concessions, closing costs, all that. It's about 10 to 11% to sell your home. What would happen is I would say it's on the market. And right now, no one wants to put 20, 30% down and take out a 6.5% mortgage on $110,000. So what they'll do is it'll go on the market for 100 days. Now they'll drop it down to 115. Now it goes on for a little more. Now it's at day 160. Now it's down to 110.
So by their method of trying to make sure that nobody lowballs them, they're also like the market is equalizing them.
Yeah, so the market pretty much beats them up a little bit. You know, sellers do not determine the purchase price. Buyers determine the purchase price of the market. They always determine the purchase price of the market.
Sure, it's what somebody's willing to buy something.
What someone's willing to pay for it
is what it's worth.
You know?
Not what you're willing to. Yeah, I mean.
But what happens is, say it's down to 110. Well, now, if he sells this for 110, does he get 110?
No, he loses 11%.
Yeah. So now he's probably what? Let's just say he's at $89,000. So he's gonna net
$99,000.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's all right.
So he's at 99,000. So pretty much. He's gonna make 99,000. He didn't really want to make that, whatever, you know.
He wanted the 110.
Yeah, he could be done with it, but you know what we do is we'll call the realtor right here.
No, 125.
And we'll say, hey, you know, why is the seller selling? Blah 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 blah. What can we do to maybe help you? You know, we've seen it's been on the market for 100 days.
Sure.
You know, is your seller open to seller financing? You know, oh, my seller's not open. Why aren't they open to seller financing? They're just not interested. Well, what aren't they interested in? You know, so.
Well, because a lot of people want their money right now. Well, that J.G. Wentworth method.
A lot of people do, but.
It's my money. I want it now.
This agent right here only took a 2-week course and a test, and they can mess with your biggest financial asset. So a realtor, unless they take their extra courses, they really don't know much. You can ask any realtor on their 2-week course how much they learned about real estate. Half of them don't even know how to count.
Sure. No, I know. You know? I've dealt with a lot of great realtors, and I've dealt with a lot of ones.
Work with realtors, you know.
I've dealt with there's a bunch of them. They're just like, you know, Susie Homemaker wanted to go. The kids are in school now. I want to go out and get my real estate license, and they do it. And they work for a broker, and they've got a little tutelage. And then it's more about charismaticness. Like how charismatic are you?
For sure.
Can you sell this house? Can you? Well, like if somebody wants to buy a house, they're gonna buy a house regardless of you.
Yeah.
Like
For sure.
like they're interested in the house. You just happen to be the person who has the brokerage that has the MLS listing. And usually in a brokerage, they share and share alike. They'll throw like they're not going to take a new person in and then just like not give you any leads,
For sure.
not pass any your way. And so
a lot of their brokers will say, "Go call expireds. Go tell this seller that the seller fired this real estate agent, that you're a better agent and you can sell their home."
Right, yeah.
That's what they usually do. But the agents, he's like, the seller's not interested. Why? Because this agent, there are some good agents that do understand it. This agent doesn't understand creative financing. They're like, I don't understand it, so I don't want to do it. The seller's not interested. Legally, they can't do that. Legally, they have to
bring all offers.
All
right.
offers to the seller, So I know it won't happen, and I'm not going to turn them in, so I don't care. What I do is I just wait. Now it's at 160. I call him again. Hey,
it was at 125 a minute ago. Oh.
Well, 160 days on the market.
Okay, gotcha. 160 days on the market. Okay, gotcha.
100 days on the market. We gave him a call. We helped him. We tried to help him, and then they're like, no, not interested. So we put him up in the follow-up system for 160. We watch it. But what happens is 160 comes around. What happens is I have Ken or myself or Megan call the agent and say, hey, are they open to seller financing? Quit coming down on their price. I'll pay full asking price. You'll pay full asking price? Yeah. I'll pay full asking price if they'll give me terms. I'll pay all this. I'll pay the seller cost. I'll pay everything that the seller has to pay. I'll pay it. But people are like, well, you're going to overpay. You're going to overpay. Purchase price means nothing. It's what you can do with it.
Sure.
So
sure, no ROI, because if you have to go back in and dump money into it, I mean, you bought it for 110 and you anticipate having to dump 40, then you already know that the house is priced at 110 because it's actually worth 150 if it was all fixed up.
Yeah.
And then for me, if I'm buying a rental property, like somebody's like, well, you just dumped 20 grand. It's like, yeah, but it's returning on an investment.
Correct.
So it's depending on how long you're interested on that return on investment.
Correct.
Is your return on investment, like some people are like, I want my return on investment in 10 years. 10 years, I want 10 years. It's like, well, yeah, but your mortgage is for 20. And I do all my mortgages at 10 because it's like, yeah, I want it paid off faster. I don't mind dumping out of pocket a little bit because guess what? Money's here today and gone tomorrow. So it's like I would rather dump it into that conventional loan payment to make sure that I stay face value with everybody because I don't stiff nobody. Like there's not a bill that I don't pay.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like here or there, do I have a net 30 and then the place does, or gives you a net 60, but I always pay net 30 and, 1 month I had to pay it on the net 60.
Yeah.
But like everybody always gets their money. Nobody gets screwed. That's usually my philosophy. So it's one of those things. I would rather dump that money instead of keeping it in cash where it's losing money.
For sure.
And I would rather make sure that like I'm reinvesting into my buildings. And that's also another reason why I don't manage. I'm also live local, so I manage my own stuff, but I make the quality repair, not the duct tape repair.
Sure.
So my repairs, and when I go in and when I go in to do an apartment, I'm remodeling it. So it's like, okay, hey, next time we come in here, we're going to remodel that bathroom.
Every 2 years, you should cycle them out. Here, it's not really good because you can't really raise the rents too much just because there's not too many jobs. But down in Florida, like every 2 years, you can raise the rents. You come in, do new drywall.
Yeah, you do a market realization on your rent price, and you're able to kind of reactualize it. And so sometimes, like, every other year you might be doing it on an apartment because maybe one person stayed for 1 year, one person stayed for 2, one person stayed for 3. So it's cycling, but at least that turnover, it's healthy because it gives you an opportunity to also come in, give a quick coat of paint, say, okay, man, hey, this guy didn't damage too much. He did a great job on this one. What can we do with the next apartment? Oh, that's phenomenal. This next apartment, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take it and we are going to, like, the next time I have to come in here, I'm remodeling that bathroom. And the time after that, I'm remodeling the kitchen. And so then you have a freshly remodeled place that you've, not just put a coat of paint on, you fixed all the issues that are currently present. And then sometimes you wait for the new tenant to move in and they'll pick out things and you come there for the first month and then you're done. You're done. You don't have to see them until they really move out unless there's an emergency. You get freezing cold temperatures like we're getting right now and you find that remodel, the guy I had run the toilet line, he put it next to your wall and didn't insulate behind it and it froze.
Yep.
But everything's in PEX now. It hardly freezes. Or if it does freeze, it can expand and contract without bursting pipes. So it makes less of a mess. It's just more pain in the ass to blow dry stuff.
For sure.
But
so what happens is pretty much we reach out and we say, hey, we'll give them that 110. And we'll pay your closing costs as long as they'll give us terms, work with us and give us payments. I want a low down payment and I want a decent payment so I can cash flow, So what happens is they say no. Well, it hits 180 and guess what happens? They fire them because they can't sell a house in 6 months. So what we do is I have my team go direct to seller because we respect the agent. If the seller says, no, I'm not going to be an asshole and go over here and I'm just going to wait. I'm going to let the market beat it up a little bit because eventually, maybe I can get it for $100,000 now. As long as I'm, because what I can do is.
And you're waiting and vigilant. I mean, that's.
So I pretty much wait and I go to the seller and I say, hey.
Like a lioness. You're waiting for that. You're waiting for that one straggler gazelle to make its way away from the herd.
For sure.
And then you pluck it.
So pretty much what I say is, hey, my team sent your agent an offer and they said you weren't interested. What weren't you interested about? And sometimes they'll say, hey, I never even received an offer. Huh. So what was your offer? And sometimes I'll be like, hey, I'll give you my offer, but.
And they may have said no if you reached out directly.
Yeah.
But now because the market's beat them up a little bit, they're downtrodden.
Yeah, and they're kind of mad at their agent, like what didn't your agent do that, you think could have sold the house better,
Sure.
Did they not communicate with you as much? Did they do any showings? Even though showings don't sell a house. We all know that. Showings don't sell a house. But what happens is the agent we call the seller and we say, hey, we said that we would take over your payments, or we would make you the bank and create a set of payments, to help you with capital gains. You can defer them and
sure, you're making those capital gain payments each year,
and you can make more money, So remember what we figured out. If they did say yes, and I bought it at 110 with the agent, let's say the scenario went well. Well, now the seller is going to net $99,000. All right, cool. What happens is, hey, I see it was listed,
I guess that is a follow-up question that I would have.
Yeah.
Is that if the owner is also the bank, I guess they're not receiving any money. I guess that would be a good question for my accountant. Because technically they're handing them, they're selling the house to you.
And they get a deed of trust with a lien against the property.
So no money changes hands except for maybe the down payment.
They get a promissory note, a deed of trust, and they lien the property because he has.
Don't they automatically assume
he's got no mortgage?
Don't they automatically assume the capital gains is whatever the fair market value of the house is?
No, they defer
minus your basis.
So I would have to bring my attorney to explain that to you a little bit better, but they can defer those payments because you only get paid on the money you receive. He hasn't received $110,000. What if I fail? What are they going to do then? Ask for their money back? Right.
So you'd only pay it on the down payment plus the monthly payments. So at the end of the year, they would cut you a 1099 I for the interest you paid on the mortgage, and they would be claiming all of your payments minus interest. The principal payments would be their capital gains payments. They'd be not deferring, but they'd be deferring it over a period of time, not deferring like a lump sum.
Yes, somewhat. So let me just explain it a little bit. It'll come through as you speak it.
Yeah.
So what happens is I go to him. I say, hey, what didn't the agent provide you that maybe I can help you with? Hey, I'm 68 years old. I just don't want to do this no more. I got 10 other rentals. I'm just gonna get rid of this one because I don't want to deal with it. Focus on my other 9, and maybe I'll sell them in the future. But this one is my lease one. I don't want it. I still have a tenant involved, and I'll be like, hey, let's keep that tenant in there. Why would you want to keep that tenant in there? Why would we want to get rid of the tenant?
Right. Sure.
We can make more money, but what happens is we take the money that's coming and we pay them a payment. So what I do is, where are you going? Oh, I'm gonna move to Florida so I can live in my RV, and my payments $500 a month. Well, I'm like, hey, what if I, help you defer your capital gains? What if I give you $10,000 to take over or to create a debt with you? I'll give you 10,000, or I'll give you $100,000, give you $10,000 down, and then create a $500 payment with you. You could add interest. There's so many different ways. That's why what I wanted to do is I've been so busy and everything with my meetings today. I wanted to bring a couple deals
Sure.
on
Just
to explain it to you, because there's so many different ways that you can explain it, and there's so many
different
different
ways that
it
can transpire.
financing.
And
So
you're right. It's creative,
you
right?
get creative with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
So
sense.
in this scenario, I'm like, hey, I'll give you $100,000, and
so I guess that's how you acquire the property. That's you dealing with the previous owner of the property.
correct.
Where do you come up with the 10,000?
Where do I'm getting there?
Sure.
So what happens is, hey, I'll give you 10,000. I'll pay the closing costs. So, and I'll give you $500 to take care of that. To take care of that. Like, what if I just pay your RV payment for the rest of your life? It's what is your RV payment? $500. What if I give you $500 for the rest of your life for this?
Or your lot payment for where your RV is parked.
Yeah, pretty much. So purchase price, $100,000. We did a $10,000 down payment, $500 a month term, 30 years. So let's say it's 500. So if we agreed upon the 500, it would change a little bit with the 30 years. So what I usually do is I try to help them out with interest as well. So, hey, I'll give you $100,000. What if I add 2% interest? And then we'll create let's just say, I don't know the payment.
Sure, going off an amortization schedule.
Let's just say $800. What I do is I create this 30-year term, and what I have is closing costs. Say the closing costs are about $1,500, and then it has a tenant, so I don't need any reno. So I'm all into the deal. Pretty much 12.5, right?
Sure.
Just say if there's any other expenses. I'm all into the deal 12.5. What I can do is I created this thing. It's only a 2%. If I were to buy this with a bank at $80,000 at 6.5%, who's paying more?
Sure. No, I get you.
And say your payments,
you win because you got the deal done with better terms.
So there's the first win, and he gets that $100,000, and he gets 2%. He's just got to wait some time, and it's going to help him because he's going to defer his gains.
Sure.
Well, what happens is, say he hit me at first with, I want $50,000 down. Well, you want to get hit with that capital gains tax of $50,000?
Sure.
So what I would say is, hey, let's work
25% of that's going to the government.
Yeah, let's help you out, and let's help me out. What if I just give you 10? I'm low into the deal. This is still somewhat of a bad deal because it's 12.5, but it's still a decent. When we buy in creative finance, we want to keep everything under at least 10 to 12, and this is right at 12.5. So this would be
a little higher than you want to.
Depending on
what
we can do with our exit strategy.
10 to 12%. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah. 10 to 12% down, all the costs. So what I'll do is, say I got 12.5 sitting over here. What I can do is, hey, I don't want to perform on this one, but you're like, hey, Devin, if you ever come across a deal where I can let's say this nets you $300 in your pocket, even though it's not the best, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
Say it's towards the end of the year and you want to help with the money you made in your business, you can buy a property and then get 7 years up front depreciation and not have to pay any tax on that. So what would happen is, say towards the end of the year, you're like, hey, I don't mind if I cash flow $300 until that tenant
It's
leaves.
$300 a month, or is it $300 total?
$300 net total in your pocket after all payments, $800, your management fee, whatever.
How long is this deal going on for?
So this is a 30-year term, but what happens is he's like, I'm 68 years old. I want to be paid off. So what happens is we create a 10-year balloon with them. I don't like balloons unless they're under 10
So
years.
you're doing a 30-year. You're coming up with your amortization schedule
With the
for the
30-year
monthly payment until you hit the 10-year mark, and then it's a balloon payment.
And then I pay them the rest of.
So I'm giving you $12,500 down as the investor, right?
Yeah. I give them, yeah. So
and I'm paid back in 10 years.
This, I didn't really do the deal too well because of this. I should have. What I like to do is I like to get as little money down as possible. There's people that Pace Morby has bought a $5 million RV park with $1 down. If I gave him 50% of $5 million, what the hell is he gonna do with that? And he's gonna get taxed.
Right, sure.
Well, you said you wanted to retire. You want all that money down. What are you gonna do with that money? Oh, I'm gonna go buy another property. Well, that's not retiring.
Sure.
Why don't I give you? Let's just change this.
Sure.
Let's make it better so people understand it better.
No, it's all right. Yeah.
So let's say bought it for $100,000, and then I say, hey, why don't I give you $5,000 down? I'll pay the closing costs, $1,500, and then what I'll do is we have a 30-year mortgage. The payment on that mortgage, I gave him 2%. If I would have bought it traditionally, he would have been left with $99,000. He's already at $1,000.
100, yeah.
Or $100,000, And then what I do is we create a 30-year mortgage, so my payment is low. And then he's like, well, I'm 68. I don't know if I'm gonna die shortly. I don't know what I want to do. Some cases they'll say, hey, let's not do a balloon payment. I want my son or my kids to, after I pass, I just want it to go to them.
Right.
The RV park, they did a 50-year note on it because he's making $20,000 a month. So now when his kid gets older and say he passes away, he gets $20K check a month. He didn't do a damn thing.
Right.
So say I give that payment, and say that payment works out to $500 a month, and right now he's got a tenant in there, so I'm probably cash flowing $300-$400 because of management fee, OpEx, like you said, repairs.
Right.
So you're probably making $300-$400. If I would have bought it traditionally, my payment would have been, let's say it's $1,000 payment. Well, that's not gonna work.
Sure.
So I make the seller the bank, and I say, hey, let's help you out. Let's defer capital gains. Let's give you more money. You just gotta wait a little bit of time. So say everything's paid off. Now I'm into the deal. Let's just say now I'm in the deal $6,500. I paid them $500 to the seller.
Sure.
$1,500 goes to the escrow, title company, all that, closing costs.
Okay.
And then, so I'm all in the deal $6,500. Well, say I don't want to spend $6,500 right now. I don't think it's a good cash flowing deal for me. But you want to help with your depreciation.
Yeah.
Why don't I? You can cash flow $300-$400. Let's say you cash flow $400. I would charge you an $8,000 assignment fee. So you would add this to that, and say you didn't want to put that money down. What you can do is I have private money lenders that you can go to and say, hey, I need
$14,500.
What you can do is you're like, hey, you could actually get paid up front.
Okay.
What you can do is you can say, hey, let me.
Now you're giving me, what is the assignment fee? The assignment fee is what you're selling it to me for.
Yes, so $8,000. So you
brokered this deal, and you've got 65.
I didn't broker the deal. I would say I structured the deal because
Sure.
I'm not a broker or a licensed agent.
Well,
I'm not getting in trouble for assigning houses. I'm not assigning houses. I'm assigning paper.
Right,
I'm
sure.
signing
You're
purchase
selling,
and sale agreement.
right.
So I got this purchase and sale agreement with this guy, these terms, and I say, hey, do you want to buy these terms?
Just like the banks. The banks will sell
Yeah.
bad debt.
Yeah, they'll
They'll
exchange
sell.
note
There's
all
a
the
mortgage
time.
that someone got foreclosed on, and
People are
they'll
like, isn't subject to illegal? You know, it's not
selling
illegal.
the mortgage.
They change mortgages all the time.
Right.
Change
Exactly.
note holders all the time.
Right.
Now this guy, he doesn't want to wait 10 years. What he can do is he can go to you and say, hey, can you cash me out? And what they can do is they can buy that note from you and get that monthly payment.
Right.
So there's many things that you can do.
Sure, on both sides of it. Yeah. I see it. And so you're making your money on the assignment fee. You're saying, hey, I structured this deal. Would you like to buy this one? I have this one, I have that one, I have this one, and I get to take my pick. And then I can say, okay, and then maybe you've done some work on this one where you said they already had a tenant involved. You already had a tenant. You've got...
I don't even need to see the property. I don't need to be there at closing. I don't have to do nothing. What I can do is I can say, hey, here's my purchase and sale agreement, have my transaction coordinator fill all the paperwork out with the seller. And then I'm like, hey, this is not a good deal for me. What am I going to do for my exit? My exit is I'm going to wholesale this one to you. If it cash flowed $1,000 a month, I'll buy it myself. What I'll do is $6,500. I'll assign it to myself for $14,500, and then I'll just go get a private money lender, and it's in between 8 to 10% simple interest, depending on them too. You can structure whatever. Sure. You know, I can say, hey, do you want to bring $14,500 into this deal, and we'll split this together. We'll split appreciation, depreciation, cash flow, leverage. We'll pretty much split that down the middle. We'll do 60-40. There's tons of things that you can do. So I can either assign this to you, I can assign this to myself, or I can bring a private money lender in to pay this, or I can go to you and say, hey, you know, I kind of want to start investing now that I made a little cash. Can you bring this 14.5 and we'll work on this deal together?
Right.
So there's many different things that you can possibly do with real estate. I work better when I actually have a deal to work on.
Sure.
Because I actually know, you know.
You can
figure out the problem, and
you can see the path in which you have to take.
Understand it better.
Right.
You know, hey, you're going through this. You're going through this. You need money for this. You know, sometimes what Pace Morby created a Morby method. So say that seller wanted 50, 60 grand down, and he don't care about the capital. He just wants his money down. What he can do is we can go either get a DSCR loan. So that's not credified on you, it's credified on the property. So the cash flow on the property, whatever it's cash flowing, as long as it can pay for that mortgage, they'll give you that. So
sure. I mean, that's kind of how traditional banks. That's how traditional banks will deal if it's not my primary residence.
Yeah.
So if I'm buying a rental property and it's rented,
DSCR loan.
Yeah, but they still want me to personally back it. That's usually how most traditional banks are, because
those traditional banks, they'll still check your credit. They'll still do all that, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you go get a DSCR loan, they don't care anything about you.
Well, then it better cash flow pretty freaking good.
They care about the property. Yeah, right. That's mostly used on multifamily. So what I can do is you can go to myinvestorlift.com, and they can do that on a single family. So
a DSCR?
It's somewhat of a DSCR, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So My Investor Lift, what they'll do is they'll just come in and create a mortgage, and you got to pay them. It's just a lien on the property.
Okay.
So there's many things that you can do that way. I can sit here for hours and just explain certain things. It's ridiculous.
Right. Okay. I mean, because that's what I'm used to. And banks, they're not dumb, right? Like banks want to make sure that they're safe, right? Sure. That's what underwriters are for. It's their job to provide them with a nice security blanket. So their goal would be to, make sure, hey, this property, hey, it's a duplex and brings in this much a month, right? And so they're going after, like, I think when we did the house next door, I just gave them the base numbers, like $800 a month per apartment. On the low end, I always like to be conservative with them, and then like, hey, because we took the risk and made the better deal to bring in, now we're bringing in, $2,000 per apartment. It's like, okay, yeah, their costs of utilities will vary, but it's not varying that much. So the increase of having to eat a water bill, having to eat And I made better
That's why
investments
we-
into that house as well. We're putting in more efficient furnaces, things like that, to save on the utility bill, because right now it's something that I pay. The water bill we put in, we reduced it from 2 meters to 1, and then we went from 1 meter, and I put 2 in line if we ever had to actually meter a tenant, determine who's causing a leak, who's doing this, who's, you know what I mean, or if we ever were to go back to the old method, I can bill the tenants, but I also put in a pressure reducing valve.
Sure.
So you don't have water blowing by you, so you have it using less water. You know what I mean? So your water bills in general are lower. Well, that's an added cost every month, and also I'm putting less wear and tear on my fixtures.
For sure.
So that's one of the construction things coming out, right?
For sure.
Put a more efficient furnace in. Well, great. Now I don't have these ancient furnaces. They're going to heat more efficiently, and they're going to lower my utility bills, and everyone's going to be comfortable.
Sure.
As long as it's sized properly, so.
That's why we tend not to do those deals unless we're working with a certain buyer.
Right.
But
the DSCRs?
Yeah. So I'm not ready for that. So
sure.
I'm not buying right now. I'm learning how to acquire properties.
Sure.
With little to no money down, and then helping investors like you.
The only issue I see with it is that you're taking on that risk. So what happens? I
have no risk.
Well,
the only risk I have is not performing, and the only.
If you didn't perform with that guy, he has to take his house back, and now he's got to hire a lawyer. Because
so what I would do is we credify our buyers. We make sure they own these properties, and every seller should do this. So what we would do is we would say, hey, hop on a Zoom with us. We'll explain it to you in person. You can see my face. I can see your face. What happens is, say we gave you 10,000 down or whatever, and we started making payments, and then I default on that. Well, wouldn't that be a good thing for you? Because then you can take all that money that I gave you. What happens is
on paper, yes.
No, what we do, yes, I guess, but
because there's a lot of lawyers. I had to go through this. You don't
need a lawyer, because what we do is we put a performance clause in our purchase and sale agreement saying, hey, if we default, you don't have to worry about foreclosing on us or whatever. What happens is title will just hand it back to them after 30 days of non-payment. Or we can do a land contract. Executory contract is the legal term. So that's a land contract, bond for deed, contract for deed, depends on which state you're in.
Sure. So in New York, I know that I've seen a lot of people have to go through and, they just get really burnt on land contracts. And it kind of sounds like this is where it goes a little bit. And that's where it's the only thing I would see is an informed seller, for example. I'm informed on this.
I would definitely credify your buyer, because I wouldn't sell to someone that that's not going to make the payment. You know what I mean?
You never know anymore. You know what I mean? What if you just you have a bunch of properties and there's a turn in the market, you're not getting those JetBlue guys, you're not getting the cheese plant workers, the traveling nurses, you're just having a really slummy couple 6 months. You got 10 properties you have to cover the mortgage payments on. For sure. And you only got a quarter of them rented.
For sure.
That's the risk I see you in, or if you're the guy that's holding them.
Yeah.
Right? And it's and then all of a sudden, are you credifying the buyer that you're unloading the structured deal to?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, because it's going to make you look like shit. If you unload it to somebody, it's all right, cool. I found a seller and I found a buyer and I structured the deal and I jump in, make my money, get out, and then something happens. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It makes your portfolio as a whole, because all it takes is one bad egg to spoil the dozen.
In foreclosure, and I catch you up, or you're pretty much in pre-foreclosure. I catch up all your arrears, and I make that payment each month, and I fail on that, and you get the property back. You're definitely netted.
Oh, sure. If you put a bunch down, yes, I get it.
But what you do is you definitely.
But I see that some people.
Pace Morby that has 2,500 out. 2,500.
I don't know. So I guess I don't know who Pace Morby is.
You got to look up Pace Morby and start.
Sure. No, I don't mind. I'll look it up.
No, I'm not. I think it will definitely help you. You can save more money on taxes. You yourself. You can buy deals. You can buy a deal today. Go on Facebook right now and go to Creative Finance with Pace Morby, and you'll find a seller finance deal today right now.
Because he's done what you're doing.
Yes.
He's kind of like
He's built
blazed
up
the
his-
trail already. So these are ones that he's put together that he's just looking for buyers. And
No,
so
he's a buyer. That's all he does is buy now. He's done this forever. What happens is he was a construction worker, and he said, what happened is he was doing a flip for this lady, and she says, "Why aren't you in real estate?" He's like, "I am in real estate." And she says, "No, you're a service provider in real estate. You provide service to me. I'm in real estate. I'm an owner of real estate. You're not in real estate. A realtor's not in real estate unless they're an investor.
Sure.
You're only in real estate if you're an investor or a note holder or private money lender, stuff like that.
When you own it or have title to it.
Yes.
Or a lien to it.
Yeah, a
right.
deed to it.
Deed, lien, whatever, yeah. No, and I sure. I get that. And I'm not also trying to put you through the ringer either. You know what I mean? I'm not like, but by me playing devil's advocate on some of this stuff, like it
definitely helps.
It helps you to be able to defend what you're doing, right? And like that's some people are like, I don't like these arguments. It's like, well, if I'm gonna try to poke holes in it, and you can quickly like thwart the hole that I'm poking, be like, there's no hole to be poked here because of this. So it's like, and maybe it's something that like I'm not aware of right now. And then you go look into it, and you're like, wow, that's a really big hole. Yeah. And then you can work on how can you remedy a hole.
So pretty much what I do is you have your phone right there. What is it worth? What is it worth nowadays?
I remember when phones used to be $200. They're probably, I think this phone probably cost $1,000 with the financing that they put on it through Verizon. Yeah, over the course of 3 years, I bet you I'm paying $1,500 for a $1,000 phone.
Yeah. So let's say you just own it free and clear. You paid it off. Your thing's worth $800. And what I do is cash wholesaling.
Sorry. No, you're good. You're good. You're giving everybody a crotch shot. So it was.
So pretty much, if I were to buy that as a cash wholesaler, what I would do is, hey, I'll give you $400 for it, and you're like, no, get the hell out of here. And you're like, and I'm like, what if I give you $800 for it? You know, just add payments. Or what if I give you $1,000 for
sure,
it?
It's 2 years old. It's 2 years old. I have one more year left of payments. So the phone, to me, the phone's probably worth $800. I've probably spent $1,000, and I have $500 more to go to own an $800 phone.
For sure. Well, I'm just saying that it's free and clear. It's $800. You own it. It's free and clear. You want $800 for it. What I would do is, hey, what if I give you $1,000 for it, and then pretty much just make payments to you. I'll give you $100 down now, and create a payment with you. Well, what I can do is this guy over here is looking for a phone. I'm just giving you a dumbass advice, but it's pretty much this guy over here is looking for a phone because what he does with that phone, he makes $2,000 a month using his phone. Utilizing that phone makes him $2,000 a month. So he can afford that payment each month, blah, 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 blah. What I would do is, hey, I'm going to buy this for $1,000, give you $100 down, create a payment with you. And I go over to him and say, hey, would you like to buy this? You know, would you like to perform on this so you can make that $2,000 or whatever, you know?
And then what you sell it to him for is like what he gives you down.
Yeah. So what I would be like, hey, give me $200 down. So I make $100. And now he's got a payment each month to you, you know.
Gotcha.
That's pretty much what seller finance is.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And that's what wholesaling is. I don't know. I got to do a little more work on my stuff on my podcast because.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, obviously,
like,
your presentation skills. But it's a podcast. Yeah. Like you said earlier, it's a copy of you out there at one point. People use my podcast too because they'll be like, "Oh, Kevin said this 5 years ago." It's like, yeah, but guess what? People change.
Yeah,
this is the thing. People grow. Like,
for sure.
Like, I was an infant 36 years ago. It's like, well, no shit. And now I'm not an infant anymore because I'm 36 years old, about to be 37. You know what I mean? It's like people are so dumb.
For sure.
But it's one of those things. But you're practicing now.
Yeah.
And every time you do, you can consider this public speaking. You don't have to. But like every time you do something like this, or even just have one of these conversations, you become more fluid at it. You're going to work out the bugs. You're going to have less hiccups. You're going to have preset like pitch examples in your head. You're going to have that 100,000. You're going to know what you're giving the guy down in the hypothetical.
For sure.
You're going to find a deal that you really like that you can cherry pick out of the deals you've done or are going to do in the next year. And in a year's time, you're going to be like, here's the one.
For sure. For sure.
Here's the one, and I can present this to this, this group, right?
For sure.
What if you put an ad out, you put a Facebook ad out, and this is how people do stuff, right? Like I remember when Ambit Energy was a thing. You ever heard of Ambit Energy?
I don't think so.
They're like a pyramid scheme. So but this is how, when you have an idea to present, whether it's a pyramid scheme or it is something you're actually trying to sell, if you've got a product, if you're like having to pitch it to a big group, an audience of people, you get people to like show up to a hotel. You say, hey, listen, come down to the Marriott. I'll be in room whatever, 111, 115, and, learn to make money on real estate for $5. And you charge everyone $5.
I'm going to charge everybody for free.
Right. Well, right. But that's what I'm saying. That's usually what they do. Is you pay $5 and you get these people that come in, and then you explain to them all of this. Or you say, hey, there's a free lunch. So you buy lunch, you rent the room, you get it's like, do you have a house for sale? Do you have a house you're trying to sell? Do you want to learn how, we can give you cash tomorrow for it? And it's like, do you also like free lunch? And people will come in, and this is where there's no such thing as a free lunch, because they're giving you their time and potentially, going through this deal, which takes up more time, but either way, for that lunch. They come in, they get your free lunch, you give them the spiel, but every time you do something like this where you're having a one-on-one with somebody, you're definitely going to be honing your craft, sure. And you're definitely going to be able to, maybe the first time you do a room, it bombs. Yeah. Just like stand-up comedy, just like anything else. You're trying to sell somebody on something, and sometimes people they're either it's not their cup of tea, it's not up their alley. Your sales pitch isn't honed enough to land one of the bigger fish. You're inexperienced with talking to a room of people. Maybe people pick up on that and they think you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes. There's a whole different the whole, you might not be, you know what I mean? There's people that are out there that are,
yeah,
and they're really good at it, and they dupe people.
For sure.
Next thing you know, they're in South America drinking Kool-Aid, thinking yes, I'm gonna go beat Jesus. You know what I mean? It's like cult stuff. And then you get other people that are they're trying to genuinely sell them a good product,
for sure,
and their sales skills aren't there yet. So it seems like they're being shady and matchstick man,
for sure.
So. But yeah,
for sure.
So
yeah, pretty much. What I'll have to do is we'll have to do a podcast where I get a couple sellers and realtors on the phone so you can see how that business and that side of the business works.
Sure.
Because then you can definitely see a lot more. And back to what you said with, what if you can't make that payment? But, what if my payment I created with you is $350 a month or $500 a month, and it's renting for $1,200, or I explain to you that, hey, I do co-living where it's going to make $2,800 a month, and that payment to you is $500. How
Sure.
am I not going to be able to make that payment?
So how are you convincing my only concern is if you approach somebody, let's say in Olean, right? You haven't done it yet, right? Or you're not doing a ton of stuff in Olean, for example.
No, I don't like the market, but I will.
Sure. So, but you're in Olean and you sell some guy in California a deal you structured from Olean. And that guy's like, oh, great. Now I have to manage the tenants. I have to manage this. You find a local guy.
I have 10 buyers in Florida that are buying in Jacksonville, Orlando, and Tampa. And I pretty much just find a deal that fits for them, and then I assign it to them.
Okay.
So they're doing this all the time.
I'm just saying, but they're in that area too.
Yeah.
So most of the buyers you're assigning are also in the area that the sellers are.
Some of them don't even look at the property. I mean, they'll have somebody go take a look at it, but as long as
they already have their own property managers. Yes. They already have their own maintenance guys.
Sure.
Okay, I'm just wondering, if you just sell it to some guy in California and some guy in California owns a house in Olean,
I would never do that.
Right. Well, so that's why I didn't know. I didn't know if there's a gap, right? All my proproperties I own.
All of my buyers will be as credible as me, even though I'm not credible, you would say, to buy that property.
Because, your reputation's still green, right?
Yeah.
In that industry.
My buyers are in the business of helping people. So I'm helping this seller be able to make more money or get out of debt, like coming out of $30,000 of arrears or whatever. Sometimes what you can do is you can, hey, you shouldn't even sell your home. You're just going through a rough time in life. Why don't we go get a private investor or my investor loan to come in there and catch you up on the arrears, pay off that mortgage, and then have a lien. There's so many different things that we can do. I just personally want to start helping people out of that. I'm gonna mainly go for subject to deals right now. So helping people that are have no equity and are gonna come out of pocket to sell. I'm just going to give them in between 1,000 and 5,000. I'm going to pretty much, I'm the buyer, but right now I'm assigning the deals.
You're essentially giving somebody else, you're taking somebody else's misfortune, trying to correct as much as you can. So they're not completely rock bottom.
For sure.
They can walk away either scot free, maybe with cigarette money in their pocket,
or maybe even go to my investor that's buying the deals or my other investors that are buying the deals and say, hey, do you have a property?
But then what you're also doing is you're coming up with a plan for whoever is going to be assigned, right? Whoever is going to be taking over this project. Sure. You're going to say, listen, here's the roadmap I gave you. I got tenants already. There's already tenants in there, or all it needs is
it's good for a short term, midterm co-living. It's good for this.
Right. So you find somebody who's so somebody who's looking for a project. Somebody who's looking to take their. I've got people that are all the time like, hey, and I've got a couple people. They're local and they're like, hey, we like your rental down the street. We will actually at some point we'd like to buy it, and they're always hounding me on it because they want to have a rental that's near their house and they have a lot of expendable income that they want to be able to write off. So it's like, I mean, for them, it's like the plan is already there. You know what I mean? Buyer and seller already know each other. But what you're doing is you're taking somebody in that situation. Maybe they don't, they're looking to find a place to have a write-off for their expendable income.
I'm just looking to help sellers, whether they're coming out of pocket to sell their home, they're in arrears,
sure,
they're tax delinquent, they have code violations. They have to sell their home, or maybe they shouldn't sell their home because there's other things that we can do. But most of the time, let's just put it as they need to sell their home.
Sure.
And conditional or conventional financing is not really.
I don't see you helping get somebody out of arrears. Like, I don't see you bailing out somebody who's going to live there and making your money back, because all you're doing is picking up, like, they got into there for some reason, right?
Yes, for sure.
Maybe it was a medical problem. Maybe it was like just bad luck.
Yeah.
But most people, they get into these financial ruts because of our education system. Nobody teaches anybody practicality when it comes to like educating people on finances or real estate or any of that stuff, right? Like, there's not a Robert Kiyosaki course they teach at like a state education, department thing. Your local middle school, elementary schools, they don't have, the rich dad, poor dad.
They'll never teach you about money because they want to create workers.
That's it. They want everybody to be a W-2 employee. No, that's 100%. That's 100% it. Because
Rothschild said we created it to create workers, not thinkers.
Yes, that's why every year critical thinking skills drop in school. Common Core math is the degradation,
within 5
erosion.
to 10 years, going to college is going to be dumb too,
because college is already
coming. AR is
AI, yeah, well, right. But going to college, unless you're in a field that's practical, like, when are you going to use your lesbian dance theory degree? Like, I mean, that's the kind of classes, like,
even like doctors, it takes you 10 years to be able to make $250,000, and then when you make $250,000, now you're in a different tax bracket. Now you're fucked too, so you're in the same boat as this guy. You just make more money. So in real life, it's not how much money you make; it's how much money you keep.
It's wealth generation.
Yes. So
versus earnings.
Them making $250,000, it took them 10 years, and they're still in debt. When there's other ways that you can, the best thing to do is either go to a trade school or learn plumbing, HVAC, any of those. and you just stick to one and real hard, you'll become successful if you do not
Right,
quit.
the stems. You got to stick in with the
Or
sciences.
another good thing is
technical
if you
and
want to
math.
get into real
So it is.
estate, you can still keep your business, you can still keep your W-2 job, and then call 2 to 4 hours a day, have other people in there.
Sure.
You don't have time for wholesaling. You have a business, you already own real estate.
Right, unless I took some time off to set up a wholesaling company, which
for sure.
I don't have a want. I don't have a want. Yeah,
you don't have a want. You could always just say, "Hey, Devin, what do
right,
you
the
have?"
same guy that wants to be a doctor.
Sure.
Right, some people don't want to be a doctor because it pays good money. Some people want to be a doctor because they want, like you want, to help people out of a bad situation.
For sure.
In the meantime, you're going to make more. Because people are in that bad situation, you're not going to help a little old lady who's stuck in her home who's in arrears.
Yeah.
Because her future doesn't bode that she's going to get a promotion at work to get you reimbursed. So financially, I don't see that side of it as much as that's a good faith.
But we can go to him and say, hey, we say he wants to buy a property or he has money to hire a management company. We can sell him a $450,000 house. Say it costs him $10K to get into it. Or let's just say it cost him $20K to get into it. We assign it to him for $30. Well, now he gets 27 and a half years of depreciation that first year. Well, what happens is you take $450, you take 30% off for the land, so $450,000. You take times 70%, so you take the land off. So the value of the house is $315. The IRS says if you do no work to that house for 27 and a half years, that house is going to be worth zero.
Sure.
So what happens is you divide that by 27.
Well, no capital improvements, right?
Yeah, 27.5. Now,
because you're also depreciating along smaller.
You and your HVAC business, you can take off $11,454 of that money down. So that doctor, he makes $250,000. He can take $11,400 and get taxed on that. But what happens if he has a good CPA? He can get 7 of those years accelerated up front. I think they're gonna do 100% of it with Trump coming in, but it's only 80%. So you can, if I buy a house for $450,000, I can get a tax break for $64,000 buying that property. So instead of paying instead of claiming your income of $250,000, you would take $64,000 off of that, and then you could be in a different tax bracket. This is how people don't pay no money with taxes. They get depreciation. You will have to pay it back when you sell the property, but what you do is you 1031.
Sure. By the end of the 27 years, you have capital gains on the sale of that property of 100% of the property because it's completely depreciated. Your basis is now zero, not what you paid for it. If you sell it the same year, your basis is what you paid for it. So you just subtract it. So if you made a profit, you're just paying capital gains on the profit.
For sure.
Right. Sure. No, I completely get it. And so it's always something that, like, the people out there in TV land, you see a bunch of people that are like, oh, the rich don't pay no taxes. It's like,
tax the rich.
Tax the
rich.
Here's the thing is they have all these little write-offs and stuff. They're still paying like 97% of all the taxes. What is it? The top 1% pays like 50% of the taxes, or 75% of the taxes. Some high ridiculous number, and then you go into the top 20%, and they're paying it ends up being like the top 50% of all earners are making up like 95% of all the income.
For sure.
And it's majority, and as you get up there, that 1% is paying 50% of that. You know what I mean? So it's 1%.
For sure.
So, and they're still doing all these tricks to not have to to cut a lot of that down. And that's still they're still paying they're still paying more than their fair share. They're not paying their fair share. That always drives me nuts.
Yeah. It's definitely crazy.
But you got to be creative, and that creates a job for you. That creates a job for the next guy. It creates a job for me and my guys to be able to go in and do HVAC work for these guys that are buying houses and plumbing and electrical and things like that. So, but you've done an hour and a half, man.
Yeah,
you
appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll get better as we go.
Yeah, for sure. We'd love to have you back on the show.
And once I get a couple more deals done, then I can possibly ask them if they want to.
I made a post on Facebook the other day, and I was telling the missus, I was like, man, because we've been talking about it for a couple of years. And then last year we kind of got a little serious with it. And then just like a month ago, 2 months ago, I got real serious with it. We were looking at properties in Florida.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then last week I made a post on Facebook and I was like, man, I would really love to buy a property on the Gulf of America.
everybody on my team has been doing real estate for over 100 years. Not 100 years, but they've been doing it for a long time. My disposition manager, she works for Joe Home Buyers.
Okay.
She is a Florida notary. She started off in title and escrow, so she knows that whole thing. So if I ever have a deal, she also has a ton of buyers that I can say, hey, my buyers don't want this. I can go to her and she'll sign it, and I'll give her 10% of that.
Okay.
My closer, Madison, or Megan is my closer. Madison is my transaction coordinator. She's amazing. She will walk the seller through the whole paperwork, walk the agent through the whole paperwork, and show them the risk, show them their what.
So you put these people into your organization, or are they just like associates of your company?
No, what you need to do is after this podcast, go hop on Pace Morbies and then hop into that community
and see what they're doing.
You need to have another conversation
after
you look into that. Yeah. And then you'll understand. Like everybody, go check out Get Creative with Pace Morby. You'll definitely learn a lot. And he has Sub 2, which I want to join. I'm just waiting for a little bit. It costs $10K to join. He will never sell you a course. New Year's Eve, he was on Zoom for 11 and a half hours just teaching people about real estate. No guru is going to do that. What happens is you can pay $10,000. I think it's around $10K, but it's one-time payment forever. And you're in a group of people. There's doctors in there. There's people that are buying businesses, people that are buying RV parks, real estate, all kinds of stuff. There's private money lenders. There's over billions of dollars in private money.
Sure.
And
you get access to it.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can bring one person on, but he's got a free Facebook group that some of the people from Sub 2 are in there. That's how I got my team. Is hey, I'm trying to build this team. This is what I need. This is what I'm good at. How can we work together? Boom.
Sure.
That's how I created my team.
Sure. So we're in the process of buying. We're in the process still of buying a tool rental company in the area, and rental companies are all part of a group called the American Rental Association, ARA. The ARA is built up of the vendors who sell you floor sanders, the vendors who sell you shop vacs, who sell you excavators, who sell you yard equipment. They sell you pretty much everything. There's tent vendors for events, chair vendors, guys that sell you chairs, guys that sell you scaffolding, guys that sell you lifts, guys that sell you, just all these different things, wood splitters to hand tools, to power tools, to whatever. And then, obviously with the floor sanders, they've got companies that are just sandpaper salesmen. They have companies that, that are selling you insurance for all of the above, people that sell you accounting services, the software that does your point of sale, then it manages your inventory. They're part of the ARA. So it sounds like it's part of the same thing that you went on like a Facebook group and you were able to find your closer in this person. Yes. So they're part of your team. They're not part of your company.
Pace Morby, yeah, they are.
Are they part of your company?
They're just 1099.
Right. So they're subcontractors. Yeah. So you have like an alliance with them.
So they have their business and I have my business and we just do deals together until we close 5 to 6 deals.
Sure. Like a real estate agent has like how real estate agents have different MLS listings and they have a Zillow listing and they have they have all these different listing and these memberships or arrangements with these other entities, sure. Right? And then they also we do well with this other real estate agency, and we also do well with this bank, and we do well with this lawyer and this lawyer. And it's like, well, what kind of deal are you trying to do? Well, this lawyer's really good at commercial, and I know that there's certain ethics, right? They're not supposed to refer certain contractors, and there's home inspectors, and there's all these different things, right? So it's kind of you're in a similar boat. Yeah, you're putting this team together that's not like your company. They're not W-2 employees from you. They don't have like sick time, right? But eventually you could build that.
So we're all working on the same thing together. Some people are just more advanced than others. So what I do is I go to people that are more advanced to me and say,
Sure,
how
learn.
can I help you? So, I don't look for it in return, but I guess it's looking for it in return. Like, how can I prick your brain by helping? Like, how can I help you? Because
Right.
I
And people
truly
are
want to
always
help you. But
people are always willing to help.
yeah, for sure.
Like, if you had a question about a heater, I'd give you advice, and I give people advice all the time. And then at some point, you're going to hit a wall, and you're going to be like, I need you to come in and do it.
For sure.
Like, I'm at a wall.
Yeah. So
And you make those arrangements. It's like, hey, man, sometimes my advice is free. And then sometimes, like, you need me to come in and do it. And my time sometimes is not. So I have to come in and do it, or I've got to pay one of my guys to go in and do it. At which point, like, for me, I'm more willing to discount my time than I am somebody who's actually charging me by the hour. And so I'm not a huge fan on eating a lot of that kind of charity. And it's easier to start that kind of charity with my hours because I can take the dollar value away from it.
For sure.
So
I would definitely do some due diligence on that Facebook group and hopping in his community.
Yeah. I'll do some research.
You would love it.
Yeah. But you got anything else, man? You got a plug? You got a website? You got a Facebook?
Sorry, I got business.
Yeah, you're fine.
So I have a website. It's called QAR Solution. It's not Solutions. My business is Core Solutions, but they already had that, so it's core./solution.com.
Okay.
And my Instagram, Core Solutions 28.
So text all this information to me too, because you're doing the plug right now.
For sure.
But text all this information. We'll put it in the description below the video.
Sounds good.
Yeah. For sure, man.
What we'll need to do is do a couple more so I can get a little bit better and maybe even provide a little bit more value to you.
Yeah, for sure.
We can buy a deal together as well, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, man. Definitely. Well, let me close this out. All right, guys. Well, this was Devin McCanna. Is it McKenna or McCanna?
McCanna.
McCanna. Okay.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem, man. Well, we'll catch you guys next time. Life22, and share this video with your friends.